An Arizona man was arrested in May for planning a mass incident in Atlanta targeting African Americans in the city to incite a race war. Mark Adam Prieto is accused of selling rifles to people to provide weapons to begin a race war ahead of the 2024 presidential election, and this was stated by the United States Department of Justice. He was indicted Tuesday by a federal grand jury following a months-long investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigations and his arrest in mid-May. An affidavit submitted in court by members of the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force in Phoenix, Arizona, detailed how the investigation into Prieto began in October of 2023. According to the affidavit, a reliable source reported that a man later identified as Prieto expressed a desire to incite a race war prior to the 2024 United States presidential election. The affidavit states that a source told FBI agents that they spoke to Prieto at various gun shows over 3 years, eventually including political conversations. During the past year, Prieto's comments became suspicious and alarming, including advocating for mass incidences and specifically targeting blacks, Jews, or Muslims. The source told FBI agents that Prieto believes that martial law will be implemented shortly after the 2024 election and that a mass incident should occur prior to the implementation of martial law, and asked the source in late 2023 if they were ready to take out a bunch of people. The FBI stated that in the affidavit that this showed Prieto's desire to recruit people to help him carry out an attack. The investigation by federal agents found that Prieto worked as a gun show vendor in Prescott, Arizona, where he sold numerous firearms from his personal collection. The source told FBI that Prieto also likes to conduct trades off the book through cash or trades to avoid possible issues or interactions with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. At the end of 2023, agents contacted the person running the Arizona-based Crossroads of West Gun Shows, where Prieto was a vendor, who confirmed his status there, matching a description given to agents by their confidential source. The FBI put Prieto under surveillance from January to March, and at the gun show in mid-January, undercover agents met with Prieto and their confidential source. While Prieto, quote, only made small talk with the source and undercover agents on the first day of the gun show, the next day, Prieto spoke about his plans for an attack. Quote, Prieto divulged his plans to commit crimes of violence against African Americans in Atlanta, Georgia. Specifically, Prieto told the source and undercover agents that he wanted their help to carry out a mass incident at a yet-to-be-determined rap concert in the city. According to court documents, that was when Prieto also explained why he wanted to carry out the proposed attack in Atlanta by saying this, quote, the reason I say Atlanta, why is Georgia such a expletive upstate now? When I was a kid, that was one of the most conservative states in the country. What is it now? Because of the crime got worse in LA, St. Louis, and all of the other cities, all of the expletives moved out of those places and moved to Atlanta. That's why it isn't so great anymore. And they've been there for a couple or several years. He also stated that he wanted to perform the proposed attack at a rap concert because, quote, there will be high concentrations of African Americans at the event. Part of the plan included leaving Confederate flags to send the message, quote, that we're going to fight back now, and every day we will be the enemy across the whole country. Prieto also told the confidential source and undercover agents that he would show, quote, no mercy, no quarter, telling them that they could not have any feelings. They're not people. They're monsters as far as I'm concerned. While under surveillance in February, the FBI saw Prieto go to a gun show in Phoenix, Arizona. While there, he was seen going into the gun show with 2 rifles and walking to the confidential source's vendor's booth. When he got to the booth, he immediately asked if the source and the undercover agent were still planning to participate in his attack. On multiple occasions, the affidavit notes that Prieto made it clear the attack was racially motivated and that he wanted to be explicitly not a gang-related thing, stating he planned to shout out KKK all the way, among other slogans, and emphasizing that having a high body count of victims was the most important part of his plan. In February, he sold a firearm to the undercover agent for $2,000. Later in March, undercover agent spoke to Prieto at his vendor table at a gun show where he told them he still planned to commit the attack in Atlanta. stating that if they waited until after the presidential election, they might have everything in place. You can't even drive. You'll be stopped. He later told undercover agents that the targeted event will likely be a rap concert scheduled for the State Farm Arena in Midtown Atlanta for May 14th through the 15th. Later plans involved pushing the attack back some time in June. While traveling to Florida to visit his mother, U.S. DOJ stated that officers stopped Prieto on Interstate 40 in mid-May. Quote, Prieto was stopped by law enforcement driving east from Arizona through New Mexico along Interstate 40. Prieto was in possession of several firearms and was taken into federal custody. Law enforcement then executed a search warrant at his home in Prescott. Law enforcement found more firearms in his residence, including an unregistered short-barreled rifle. Now indicted, Prieto faces charges for firearm trafficking, transfer of a firearm for use in a hate crime, and possession of an unregistered firearm. Justice officials stated that each conviction for trafficking firearms and transfer of firearms for a hate crime carries a maximum penalty of 15 years of prison, a fine of $250,000, or both. A conviction for possession of an unregistered firearm carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison, a fine of $250,000, or both. Separately, each charge could also result in a maximum of 15 years in federal prison. Being convicted of possessing an unregistered firearm carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison and $250,000 fine. A trial date for Prieto has not yet been set. So I'm pretty sure that people are going to, well, the conservatives, they're going to decide to state that, oh, this was just, some ploy by the Democrats to try to get something stirred up and yada, yada, yada. It's always the Democrats. It's always this. It's always, all right. So, because, you have a lot of people that tend to believe that things like this don't exist, right? That things like this are, in a sense, make believe. Like, people make up stories, even though we have books, we have history of these things being documented, things like this happening. There are tons of books out there where people have stated that my great-great-grandpappy told me that a great race war was a coming. And he said, always be prepared because a race war was coming, right? And for the longest time possible, those generations that stated that and kept stating it, they're pretty much gone. So now you have their kids living on and they're carrying on that exact same, oh, I gotta stay ready. I know this war is coming. I don't know when, but it's just an if. I'm gonna be prepared. And I'm like, you're gonna stay being prepared and hold your breath because we're not even worried about you like that. And again, like I said before, there's a certain type of fear that people have when they know that they've committed such atrocities and such wrongs historically that now they have to be prepared because now they're just like, yo, something is going to happen. Something is up. I can feel it. It's like something just don't sit right with me. I can feel it in my bones. But you shouldn't feel that way if you're innocent. If you don't have anything in your DNA that, in a sense, would find you culpable for the atrocities and the horrendous deeds of your ancestors, then you will be completely fine and dandy. You'll be out here living white, free, and 21, but yet you're not. You're living uncomfortable. You're living unsettled. You're living unhinged. And you're always peeking out your blinds because you feel like you got an enemy directly out there. You know who it is, but you just don't know when it is that they're going to strike. Nah, no, coach, that's not it. Your greatest enemy is reflective in sight. If you look in the mirror, you'll actually be able to find out exactly who it is. And the funniest thing is to have so much anger and animosity and want to start something like this. And again, Black Americans are a group of people that have not stripped any rights from any Americans that are here. But yet there is such animosity, there is such anger as if we've literally stolen and taken something away from everybody here. And people make it seem as though when Black Americans speak that others don't like us or they have some type of loathing or disdain, that we're just making it up. We just want to be victims. So explain this. Like we want to be quote unquote victims so bad, then what is this? Because this guy don't look black to me. He don't look black to me. So, and then he was going to do this at a Bad Bunny concert in Atlanta, in the heart of Atlanta, so to speak. And then was going to leave around some paraphernalia and then shout some things. And then, hey, we got to do Call of Duty. We got to have the highest body count. That's crazy. That's crazy. Wow. But like I said before, can't wait to see, how a lot of people out there would try to flip this or turn this into something else, or try to be so dismissive, like, oh well, it's bad that, we got nuts out here like this, but it's not indicative of everybody. But what about these crimes that have been going on in Chicago and Detroit? And I'm just waiting, because it's going to happen. It happens every single time. Whenever you point out things like this, people want to deflect and they want to move the conversation to something else.